Started.
Good evening. Today we'll be discussing on some topics on biochemistry. Mainly I just called it as general biochemistry. At the same time, maybe in the sense about the cell and cell organelles, then about acid-base balance, our another topic, detoxification, then something about enzymes and vitamins. Okay, let us straight away go to the topic today. Got stuck. It got stuck. Okay, the first question. Which cell organelle contain DNA? Here, we always know about the nucleus, but the nucleus is not given here. Then what's the topic? Which cell organelle? We should understand that other than the nucleus, we have the DNA in the mitochondria. Okay, some ideas about the mitochondria, mitochondrial DNA. And just understand that mitochondrial DNA is totally a maternal inheritance. And in our body, in our nucleus, the DNA is circular. DNA is linear, but here it is circular. And we have multiple copies that are there in one mitochondria. And it has information about that. DNA contains information about around 22 tRNA and around 13 proteins. And there's a theory about this one. It's called as endosymbiotic theory, which says that mitochondria are derived from see this mitochondrial DNA, and mitochondria is derived from prokaryotes itself. And so it is adapted, and then it is adapted to multicellular organelles. That's what we always say. And one important point you should note here it is that mutation is very high in the DNA, mitochondrial DNA, because the DNA repair mechanism, what we have in the nucleus, is not so effective in the mitochondria. So naturally, what happened with age, there will be a lot of mutational related diseases may occur. So that we will be dealing with some few points. We'll be dealing the electron transport chain. Okay, then when we study about the cell organelles, the two important things you are supposed to know. One is about what is the specific function of each cell organelle and what are the markers of it. Okay, first of all, about the nucleus, we know it's for replication and transcription, no doubt. And the marker is DNA there. So using a marker DNA, we'll be able to say that, okay, this is nucleus. When we think about the mitochondria, the major feature, unique feature, major function is about the electron transport chain. In the inner mitochondria, we have a complexes that helps in transport of electron and thereby ATP synthesis. And the major pathway that takes place in the mitochondria, we know it's TCA cycle, and partially our urea cycle, a part of heme synthesis, takes place in the mitochondria. Of course, the ketone body synthesis also takes place in the mitochondria. Okay, and there the marker enzyme is ATP synthase complex. Okay, so we call it as complex 5 also. Okay, then about the next is about lysosome. Lysosome, as you know, we always study from the +2 class, that is suicide batch. So in other words, it helps in the degradation of any biomolecules, protein, carbohydrate, lipid, nucleotides, everything. Degradation occurs from the enzymes to the lysosomes. And we have a marker enzyme, cathepsin and acid phosphatase are the marker enzymes of lysosome. Then about the Golgi apparatus or Golgi bodies, mainly its function is about the modification of protein. That means after the synthesis of a protein, it gets glycosylated. So that, and that glycosylation is one of the factor that helped it to reach its major targeting organs, targeting tissues, or targeted cell organelle. So that modifications happens in the Golgi bodies. So thereby, it help the sorting and packing the transport vehicle. That's what I said. So to reach its destination because of these modifications. So that happens in Golgi bodies. And here, attachment of carbohydrate, one of that carbohydrate galactose cell transfer. You can think it, study in that way. Galactosyl transferase is one enzyme that we use as a marker for Golgi apparatus. Another one, endoplasmic reticulum. As you know, it's a fine network from the nuclear membrane towards our cell membrane. And see, when the endoplasmic reticulum is attached to ribosome, we call it as rough ER, that help in the protein synthesis. Okay. And endoplasmic reticulum contains a number of enzymes, and that too, one of the enzymes is cytochrome P450 that help in the detoxification process. So some important things are lipid biosynthesis in the sense steroid hormone synthesis, detoxification process, and ribosome attached endoplasmic reticulum for protein synthesis. These are some unique functions of endoplasmic reticulum. And when it is separated, no, it's called as microsome. I hope you might be knowing. So the word microsome also we use. For that, the enzyme is glucose 6-phosphatase is the marker enzyme. Okay, about cytoplasm, when we say about cytoplasm, as you know, the major pathway, glycolysis take place in cytoplasm. Some portions of heme, some heme synthesis, some steps of heme synthesis, and the few steps of gluconeogenesis takes place in the cytoplasm. Okay, and then its marker enzyme is lactate dehydrogenase. Another cell organelle, we of course, peroxisome. One of the major functions of peroxisome is on about the oxidation of very long chain fatty acid, and its marker enzyme, catalase and peroxidase. You know about the fatty acid oxidation we studied as a word beta oxidation. The beta oxidation that takes place in the mitochondria, but the length of that fatty acid should be around 18. It should be less than 18 or less than that. If it is more than that, we call it as very long chain fatty acid. And the very long chain fatty acid, the first few steps of its oxidation, beta oxidation, takes place in the peroxisomes. Okay, so the rate limiting enzyme, so the marker enzymes are catalase and peroxidase. Okay, I hope now you can answer these questions. Golgi bodies functions as. Hope you will be able to answer it. Of course, the sorting of glycoproteins, glycosylation, then it's sorting and packing Golgi bodies. And main function of mitochondria, hope you will be able to know, it's electron transfer. Okay, good. Now about few points about the cell membrane. Cell membrane, as you know, the word, please note the word fluid mosaic model. Okay, that's one thing you should remember about that, fluid mosaic model. And there you have a phospholipid bilayer where the hydrophilic region will be towards outside and towards the inside. And the hydrophobic area will be at the core. And some carbohydrates will be attached with. Some proteins will be here and there. You can see the proteins. So fluid mosaic. In the mosaic, the proteins and the granules will be randomly, you can see randomly here and there. The same way, the proteins we can see here and there. So that's about the structure of our plasma membrane structure, cell membrane structure. And please note that, as I said, contain lipids and protein. Okay, no doubt in that. And its ratio varies. The minimum we can see in the myelin sheath, the protein will be minimum in myelin sheath. So the ratio will be around only 0.23. And the inner mitochondrial membrane has the maximum protein, and the ratio is around 3.2. That means the proteins is 3.2 times more than that of lipids in inner mitochondrial membrane. And one of the things you should know, the most common lipid in any membrane is phospholipid. So we have a phospholipid bilayer. I hope you can answer this question now. The cell membrane consists of mainly lipids and protein. The major ones are lipids and protein. Of course, some amount of carbohydrates will be attached to it. Now we will study something about the cell membrane. I use the word fluid mosaic model. So it has a fluidity. That means what is fluidity? Fluidity meaning the lateral movement of molecules is possible in the membrane. Okay, that's what. The other movement, the shift from outside to inside or to inside to outside will be through some transmembrane proteins. Most of things. Otherwise, it should be a lipid soluble compound. The steroid hormones, as you know, that are permeable. Or lipids are permeable, but the other compounds are not. For that, we need a transmembrane protein. You know it. Okay. So just some few points about fluid mosaic model. I said use the word, why the word the fluid and why the word mosaic. Then next point, what you're supposed to know is about the, as I said, the phospholipid bilayer with a polar head oriented outside to the extracellular side and to the cytoplasmic side. And you have a hydrophobic core, I already said that. Now, about the phospholipid. We know that one of the phospholipid is phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamin, phosphatidyl goes like that, different names. In that, the choline containing phospholipid, we can see mainly in the external layer. I said phospholipid bilayer. In that bilayer, the layer, what is at the external side, will be having the phosphatidylcholine. And ethanolamine and serine containing phospholipid will be the more amount we can see in the internal layer. Okay. And some facts, its thickness is around, totally the thickness is around 2.5 nanometer. And head portion will be around 1 nanometer and tail portion 1.5. So total thickness, it might be from 5 to 8. And then I said about the fluidity. What is fluidity? There will be lateral movement of the components. And the flip-flop movement, that means from outside to inside or inside to outside. That movement is restricted. That movement is only through the transmembrane protein. Okay. And the bilayer, if the lateral movement, that we call as fluidity. And now we'll just study about what are the factors that maintain the fluidity. So the phospholipid, as you know, it contains 2 fatty acids. The hydrocarbon chain, the length of the hydrocarbon chain, and the degree of unsaturation, and the nature of the polar head group, choline, ethanolamine, like that. These are the factors. One of the factor that maintain the fluidity. And of course, if there's any trans fatty acid, that can decrease the fluidity. And understand about the temperature, transition temperature. It can act as a gel, our fluid, that bilayer can be as a gel at the same time like a fluid. So there is a temperature at which it can move from the gel to the fluid part. That temperature we call transition temperature. Now comes the point. The cholesterol has a major role in the fluidity. Now listen to this one. When the cholesterol level is high, the fluidity can vary as per the cholesterol concentration. 1 point. And second is one important point. Please note this one. At the temperature below the transition temperature, that melting temperature, cholesterol increases the fluidity. And above the transition temperature, cholesterol decreases the fluidity. So it will try to maintain, it will try to reduce the impact of temperature. That's what I should say. Try to reduce the impact of temperature on fluidity. Okay. So that's one important point you should think about, the role of cholesterol on fluidity or effect of cholesterol on fluidity. Okay. As I said earlier about proteins. Protein, there are mainly, we can say 3 types of protein. We can say one is peripheral protein that we can see only on the surface. And another one is integral protein. And third, I have already shown you about the transmembrane protein. Okay. Now, question, which of the following about the biological membrane is true? Whether, then as I said, the phospholipid bilayer, the head is hydrophilic and the tail part is hydrophobic core. So it contains both hydrophilic and hydrophobic part. So it's called as amphipathic. So the phospholipid is an amphipathic molecule. So we can use that. We should understand that. The lipid moiety is amphipathic. That's the point about the biological membrane. Okay. So this was some points about the cell. So when you study about the cell, study about the functions of cell organelles and the marker enzyme. Then about the cell membrane, its fluid mosaic model, phospholipid bilayer, thickness, that points you're supposed to know. Okay, now comes a word. I'm going to the topic of acid-base balance. And there comes, what's the normal blood pH? Hope you might be knowing the answer for it. Of course, we know that it's 7.4. So if you say the range, plus or minus 0.02, 7.38 to 7.42. And in the case of acidosis and alkalosis, it will be plus or minus 0.05. So it will be 7.35 to 7.45, meaning if the pH is less than 7.35, we call it as acidosis. And if it is more than 7.45, it's called as alkalosis. Okay, how will you study all the things? So first one about blood, whenever we say about the pH, blood pH and the parameters related to it, one common numeric you should remember is 4. And 7, so blood pH 7.4. Just think about the word 4. So now, and there, this 7.4 is constitutes to, or it related to the normal concentration of H+ ions. It is 40 nanomoles per liter. As you know, what is pH is minus logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration. So when you say the blood pH is 7.4, that means the hydrogen ion concentration in our blood is 40 nanomoles per liter. Okay. Next factor, another thing is about bicarbonate. We have the major buffer that maintain the blood pH is bicarbonate buffer. In that, you should know the bicarbonate buffer, the two components are, one is bicarbonate itself, other one carbon dioxide. Now again, to remember the normal value of bicarbonate, in the blood, we should always check for the bicarbonate level when we think about acidosis and alkalosis. So you should know the normal values. When we say about the bicarbonate normal value, study in this way. Bi means 2. And as I said earlier, a common numerical is 4. Common number is 4. So 24. Bicarbonate, you study in that way. Bicarbonate level, normal value, 24 millimoles per liter or milliequivalents per liter. And then plus or minus 2. So the range is 22 to 26 bicarbonate level. And another factor, another parameter, when we study about the blood pH, what you're supposed to remember is about the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Next thing, PCO2. There, the value is, as I said earlier, that's 40. And studied that with 40 millimeters of mercury. If you say the range, 35 to 45. So everywhere we have a number 4 in common. Study in that way. 7.4, normal concentration H+ ions 40, bicarbonate 24, PCO2 40. And if we just say the carbon dioxide level in the blood, it will be 1.2. The value will be 1.2. I'm coming to that word later. Okay. Now, just few points about the pH, blood pH. How it is maintained in the body. Its maintenance is mainly by 3 mechanisms or 3 major factors. One is about the blood buffer. We have some buffers in the blood. So the blood buffers are, first buffer is the major buffer is bicarbonate buffer. We call it as bicarbonate buffer is a major extracellular buffer. Major extracellular buffer is bicarbonate. Then another buffer is phosphate buffer. Phosphate buffer is present in the extracellular space or the plasma. At the same time, it's a major buffer inside the cell. So the major intracellular buffer is phosphate. Okay. And third, the major buffer is protein buffer. Protein buffer. So these are the three major buffers in our body. And then, of course, in the RBCs, we have hemoglobin as another buffer. So that's the first one. And this is the first line of defense. So whenever the pH changes, the first line of defense to maintain the pH is the buffer. In that, the major buffer is bicarbonate buffer. Second mechanism, what we have is respiratory mechanism. It's a short-term second line of defense and the short-term mechanism. So that's a part of respiratory mechanism. Hope we all have felt it. Whenever we do a severe exercises, we'll be having hyperventilation. So that's one of the way by which we are trying to remove out the carbon dioxide from the body. What happens is whenever we do severe exercises and all, what happens is H+ ion concentration will be increasing. That will activate the respiratory center in our brain, medulla oblongata. Thereby, that leads to hyperventilation. We have some chemoreceptor there that will be activated that help in the hyperventilation. So, second mechanism, respiratory mechanism. And please note that both the buffer and respiratory mechanism will not be eliminating the H+ ion as such. In the buffer, will be trying to neutralize it, the H+ ion. Respiratory mechanism will be removing the carbon dioxide, not the H+ ion as such. And third mechanism comes the renal mechanism. That's the third line of defense, and that's a major one. That's a permanent one. It's long term. Okay, renal mechanism is the long term one. Is the long term pH maintenance is by the renal mechanism. In that itself, so that's the renal mechanism only way mechanism where H+ ions are eliminated from the body. Okay, that you should know. And there we have do the mechanism by 4 methods. One is just it will excrete the H+ ions as such. Second, it will excrete the H+ ions as titratable acid. That means acid which are having less dissociation. Okay, less dissociation or very weak acid that can be measured only by the method of titrations. So it's simple, I can understand that way. And third is as ammonium, NH4 plus. So these are three mechanisms by which it excretes out the H+ ions. And the fourth way, what it do is it reabsorbs the bicarbonate. Okay, that's another renal mechanism. So kidney will help it to maintain the pH in mainly we can say 2 ways. One, excretion of acid. At the same time, the reabsorption of the alkali. And here the major alkali or the major base is bicarbonate. Okay. So understand these things. Now comes the question, the most important buffer in RBC. I just already said that the major extracellular buffer is bicarbonate. And major intracellular buffer is phosphate. But the phosphate is not here. Then comes the question is in RBC, the major buffer is hemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin and deoxyhemoglobin together. And inside the cell, the ion present is major intracellular ion is potassium. So that will be in the potassium form. So the answer will be this one, second one. Oxygenated hemoglobin and potassium hemoglobinate. And now comes to keep the blood pH at 7.4, what should be the ratio? Bicarbonate to carbonic acid ratio. Here, I'll show you the first about that equation, Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. This is the equation by which we always measure the pH of any buffer. Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. pH is equal to pKa plus log base by acid. Now comes the point. So, as you know, pKa means the pH at which half is ionized. Half of the acid is ionized. Okay, for the bicarbonate buffer is 6.1, so that will not vary at all. So pH, this one, pH, to know the pH, we should know the pK value, but that's a constant 6.1 for the bicarbonate. Then the log of base by acid. So here the ratio matters. That's the point. So here to make it 7.4, the ratio should be 20. Base should be 20 times more than that of acid. So bicarbonic acid is 20 times more than that of, bicarbonate is 20 times more than that of acid. Bicarbonate is more. Now comes a word. Usually a buffer, a very important point, concept-wise, very important point is that a buffer will be very effective when the concentration of base is equal to that of concentration of acid. That's what we always say should be equal. But here, in our body, base is around 20 times more than that of acid. Even then we say it is more effective. You know why? Because in the body, a lot of acid is produced during metabolism. As I said earlier, the pH is 7.4, is corresponds to 40 nanomoles per liter. 40 nanomoles. So the pH of the blood, so hydrogen concentration is 40. But daily in the body, around 60 to 80 millimoles. Please understand that normal value is 40 nanomoles, but in the body mainly daily around 60 to 80 millimoles. That means 10 to 3 times more acid is H+ ions are produced. So to neutralize that acid, we need a lot of base. So that's why our base is around 20 times more, and that is able to effectively neutralize the acid. And this high amount of base we call it as, I'll go back, high amount of this base, we call this one, 20 times more. 20 times more. We call it as alkali reserve. Alkali reserve of in our body, 20 times more. Okay. So that's what you should know. And pK value is bicarbonate 6.1 and for phosphate buffer is 6.8. There the ratio is around 3. Phosphate buffer, the ratio of base by acid will be around 3. Okay. Now here, with this, I want to tell you one thing more, one important more point. More than this equation, you should understand that whenever this pH changes, okay, pH instead of 7.4, it becomes 7. For example, 3. That means what? Sometimes the acid is increased. Understand that the acid is increased. Okay, then what the body should do? What is the body's compensatory mechanism? To maintain this ratio 7.4, what the body should do? Body should increase the base. That we call it as rule of same direction. For the compensatory mechanism of the body, what the body do when the acid level increases the body, either body try to neutralize the acid, remove the acid. If it is not possible, body will try to increase the level of the base. This idea we need later. This idea we need later. In different areas we need. We'll be telling about compensatory mechanism, what happens in acidosis and alkalosis. Okay. This I said already. When this is what always say, a buffer is more effective when the pH is equal to pKa. When it happens, when the log base by acid is 1, log 1 is 0, then pH is equal to pKa. So that's what about the buffer. We always have a question in this way. Buffer is more effective. When it will be more effective? When the pH is equal to pKa, or when the buffer is half ionized. In other words, when the amount of base is equal to that of acid. Okay. Now a question here regarding to the compensatory mechanisms. Most important compensatory mechanism in metabolic acidosis. Okay. So first I should tell you, I'll be telling about that later about acidosis and alkalosis. Just now understand this one. Metabolic acidosis, when I use the word acidosis, means pH is decreasing. the pH is decreasing. And then what's the reason for it? Whenever you use the word metabolic, meaning there's a change in bicarbonate concentration. Change in bicarbonate. So bicarbonate, whenever it's a base. So when the value of the bicarbonate reduces, that leads to acidosis. That's what we should know. Okay. So decrease in the bicarbonate, we call it as metabolic acidosis. That's the primary reason in the metabolic acidosis. So as I said in the equation earlier, whenever there's a change in the bicarbonate, your compensating mechanism should be, when it is decreased, what the body should do? The body should somehow decrease the carbonic acid level. How it is happening? Excretion. So there is hyperventilation will be there, but it is short term. But the most important compensating mechanism is, of course, there is hyperventilation, but the most important one is this one. You know what happened? Increase ammonium ion. Ammonia will be excreted as ammonium ions. This is the major mechanism by which, because acid should be excreted out, so that the acid will be, the ratio will be maintained. As I said earlier, pH is equal to pKa plus log base by acid. Now, in the conditions of metabolic acidosis, bicarbonate level is reduced. So, body will try to reduce the level of acid. In that, the body will try to reduce the carbon dioxide also. So, there is hyperventilation. But as I said earlier, respiratory mechanism is a short term and it's temporal. Short term mechanism. But the real mechanism is the long term mechanism, that's the third line of defense. In that, we have three types are there: excretion of H plus ion, excretion of nitric acid, excretion of ammonium ion. So here, in this condition, what happened? More amount of ammonia. Whenever there is acidosis, there will be more excretion of ammonia as ammonium ion. So that's a major compensatory mechanism. Study in that, understand that way. Okay, now a few points about acid-base disorder. As you know, just now I said acidosis, whenever the pH is less than 7.35, it's called as acidosis. So acidosis can occur in two conditions. Either acid accumulation. Acid means carbon dioxide mainly, or other acids. So here when we say about the bicarbonate buffer, we have a carbonic acid and bicarbonate. So carbonic acid increases. So it can be acid accumulation or it can be decrease in the base. Okay. So when we think about the bicarbonate buffer, decrease in bicarbonate, that can be reason for acidosis. So whenever there is acid, okay, same way. What is the alkalosis? When the pH is more than 7.45, it is called as alkalosis. Okay. In that, either it can be because of decrease in acid or increase in the accumulation of the base. These are the two conditions. Now the name changes, and always we keep the name based on the components of the bicarbonate. Now we'll see that. So whenever the carbon dioxide or carbonic acid level changes, we give a prefix respiratory. So respiratory acidosis, respiratory alkalosis. So whenever you use the word respiratory acidosis, there the primary change is in the carbonic acid level. So that will be an acid accumulation, increase in that. So whenever respiratory acidosis, there will be an increase in carbonic acid. And in the whenever you use the word metabolic, and there the primary change will, I use the word change. I use the word decrease or increase. The primary change will be the bicarbonate. So if the bicarbonate level is decreased, then that leads to acidosis. Then you use the word metabolic acidosis. When the bicarbonate level is accumulated or increased, that leads to alkalosis. Then you use the word metabolic alkalosis. So this is what you should know. So this is what acidosis. Again, repeat and just repeat. I want to tell you one more point here, because a case, if the case is given and asking you to find out what type of disorder, this is how it should be. So first check the pH. Okay, it's less than 7.35, it is acidosis. Then check for the carbon dioxide, that means carbonic acid level and bicarbonate. If the carbonic acid level is increased, then we use the word respiratory acidosis. And when the bicarbonate decrease, then we use the word metabolic acidosis. Okay, same way about alkalosis. Alkalosis means the pH more than 7.45. If the bicarbonate is accumulated, we call it as increase, we call it as metabolic alkalosis. And whenever the carbonic acid level is decreased, then we use the word respiratory alkalosis. Now, see what happens. Don't in the cases normally what happens is don't think that only one will increase. It's not like that. Both can change. Then you should think about this word wrong. What is that? Whenever the change in the pH and the change in the carbon dioxide level, they are in the opposite direction, then that is respiratory. Simple as that. Please not in that way. When they change the pH and they change the carbon dioxide. Look here, in acidosis, pH is decreased, but the carbon dioxide level is increased. In alkalosis, check it out. The pH is increased. Alkalosis means it will be more than 7.45. It is increased, but carbon dioxide level is decreased. So they always move in opposite direction. Respiratory, opposite. But metabolic, if it is bicarbonate, see, when the pH is decreased, bicarbonate is decreased. So both in same direction. When the bicarbonate is increased, that leads to increase in pH. Between more than 7.45. So pH and the bicarbonate will move in same direction. That's why the word or equal direction. So the word ROME, respiratory, that means carbon dioxide, opposite that of pH, and bicarbonate, same that of pH. Same direction that of pH. So with this idea, you will be able to identify any disorder if the value is given and we know the values. I have already taught you how to remember the values. pH 7.4, range 7.35 to 45. Always we have a 4 in common. Bicarbonate 24, 22 to 26 plus or minus 2. And PCO2 level 40, that means 35 to 45. And if you are going to carbon dioxide by carbonic acid, it's 1.2. That means 1.1 to 1.3 comes. Okay, that's about the acidosis alkalosis condition. About that topic. Now, next, I'm going to for next topic about the detoxification. Or other word we always use is the word is xenobiotics. The word we always use is xenobiotics. Meaning, xeno means anything that is common, that is from the outside. You might have heard this word, no? Iso, allo, xeno. Iso, allo. Allo means other. Iso means same. And xeno means from outside, foreign. So any foreign bodies, how they are removed from the body. There comes the word detoxification. So any compounds that are accidentally ingested into the body, either as a part of your drugs, medicine, or as a part of bacterial metabolism, or some toxic compound. When it enters, the body will try to remove it by making it soluble and remove it. This process we call as detoxification. There, about detoxification of drug is mainly by an enzyme called as cytochrome P450. So for this process, we need a cytochrome P450. Why this word P? Because it can absorb light around 400 nanometer, 450 nanometer, in presence of carbon monoxide. So whenever it absorb, any compound absorb light in the visible area, visible range, that means around from 400 to 700, then it will be giving a color. So this will be able to absorb light at 450 nanometer. So it's like a pigment. So the word P, cytochrome P450. Why the word cytochrome? Because it gives color for the cells How it be, and here it's a heme containing protein. Okay, it's a heme containing protein, and it's a monooxygenase. Understand that. From the oxygen atom, one of the in the O2, one oxygen atom will be given to the compound to be detoxified and converts to OH. So it becomes soluble. That's what it meant. So cytochrome P450 is a major enzyme involved in the detoxification. And you should know that detoxification, we studied in the second slide. Where it happens mainly? ER. What is ER? Endoplasmic reticulum. Cytochrome P450 in the endoplasmic reticulum help in the detoxification process. Okay, so that's what you should always remember. P means pigment, 450 for the light, nanometer of light that it's absorbed. It's absorbed in presence of carbon monoxide. It's this cytochrome P450. We have a different types of cytochrome P450 in our body, polymorphic, and it's a monooxidase. And please understand the word. Why I said the word monooxidase? Because from an oxygen, two atoms are there in that. One will be attached to substrate. Other will be removed of water. So one oxygen atom will be utilizing it. So the word monooxygenase. So here the answer is cytochrome P450. So this is the common idea about any detoxification process. Let it be any foreign compound. Okay. The problem is they are not soluble. So what the body do? The first step, we have a phase 1 reaction. It can be oxidation, reduction, or hydrolysis. Mainly our cytochrome P450 is involved in that process and convert to a compound with a specific one functional group will be attached to it. Example, OH group will be attached to it. That's an example. Any function group. So this is the phase 1 reaction in the detoxification process. In phase 2 reaction, what happens is some other groups will be attached, some other compounds will be attached to make it more soluble. So the R of function compound is insoluble and it cannot be excreted from the body. But after the phase 1 and phase 2 reaction, it becomes soluble so that we can excrete out. So this whole process, we use the word detoxification. So it's a process where a foreign compound which is insoluble and which are toxic, which cannot be excreted in the body, are converted to a soluble and excretable form. That's process called as detoxification. The phase 1, we have phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is oxidation, reduction, or hydrolysis, either of any three. Then phase 2 means conjugation. Conjugation examples, you know, bilirubin is insoluble. To make it soluble, what do? We attach with glucuronic acid. One simple example you can always remember. Most of the steroids, most of the drugs are conjugated with glucuronic acid for its excretion. Another example, what you can remember is, I'll be telling about that in other amino acid metabolism also. Glycine. Glycine help in the conjugation of a compound. You know, in our jam, fruit juice and all, there will be a preservative called as benzoic acid. Benzoic acid, okay? Or benzoate. You might be knowing about that, benzoate. And this benzoate is insoluble. What happened? This benzoic acid will conjugate with glycine in our body and form a compound, hippuric acid. So that's another example for hippuric acid. That's another example for conjugation. We have a number of examples. Cyanide is a toxic compound. Antidote is thiosulfate. It will combine together. It will be removed out. We have a number of compound glycine. I'll be telling it later after when it comes, the portion comes. Glutathione is another one compound for conjugation. Glucuronic is another compound for conjugation. Glycine. Glutamine. I'll be telling you about that in phenylketonuria. Glutamine is another compound that helps in the conjugation. Acetylation, methylation, reaction, all comes under, all that can be used for conjugation purpose. Okay. So this, after detoxification, we get a less toxic, more soluble, and easily excretable form. So there are two phases. First phase is oxidation, reduction, or hydrolysis. There what we do, will be attaching a functional group to it, to the foreign compound. Second group, phase 2 reaction, to that functional group, we'll be attaching a group, a compound. So that become more soluble. Okay. So that's all about our detoxification process. Cytochrom P of T. Understand that bit about the word most important enzyme is cytochrom P of T. Now I'm going to the next topic, enzymes. Here comes a question. Apoenzyme plus coenzyme forms what? In any enzyme, the protein part, we use the word apo. Protein part, we use the word apo. The non-protein part, we use the word for the enzyme, coenzyme. So altogether, the active form, we use the word, so this is the compound, holoenzyme. So that's our answer for it. Okay. And what is this proenzyme? Proenzyme is nothing but this proenzyme. Other word, we use one more word you have, zymogen, inactive form of an enzyme. You know that our digestive enzyme, pepsin, chymotrypsin, they are all synthesized in the inactive form. Okay. Pepsin, trypsin, pepsin is synthesized as, is secreted as pepsinogen, trypsinogen. So they are not an active form. They are called as zymogens. Apoenzyme is the protein part. Okay, now what are enzymes? You know, they are biological catalysts. No doubt. I'll say some few basic ideas about enzymes. They are biological catalysts. Most of them are proteins in nature, but we have another exceptions. There are some RNA having enzyme activity, and they are called as RNA full form, ribo. That ribo plus enzyme site, ribozyme. RNA having enzyme activity is called as ribozyme. Our protein synthesis, we have an enzyme called as peptidyl transferase. Peptidyl transferase. That's an example for ribozyme. I will tell you about that at that time also. Okay, so most of the enzymes are protein nature, but we have exceptions. There are some RNA also. That's one point. And about the classification. Classification of enzyme, the point is, we already in our classes, first year class, we studied about 6 classes of enzymes. O stands for oxidoreductase, T for transferase, H for hydrolyze, LY for lyase, I for isomerase, L for ligase. That's the 6 classes. Othilil studied that way because whenever you use the word class 1, it is oxidoreductase. Transferase is class 2. Hydrolyze is class 3. Lyase is class 4. Isomerase is class 5. Ligase is class 6. But now, as per the new classification process, we have a 7th one, T for translocase. Translocase. We have a translocase that transfers the ATP and ADP. ATP translocase. And in the beta oxidation, we have a shuttle for transfer of transfer across membrane. We have a thing called as carnitine translocase. Carnitine translocase. That's another example for it. So please note, now enzyme, as per the new classification, we have 7 classes. Earlier we studied only up to 6. Now we have 7 classes. Please note that. Okay, so about classification over. Study with examples. Each one study with examples. Okay. Any study in that way, any type of removal of hydrogen is oxidation. So any enzyme involved in removal of hydrogen. Removal of hydrogen, another word right here, dehydrogenase. So any dehydrogenase comes under oxidoreductase. Easy to study, no? Any oxidase, these all comes under that. And T for transferase, transfer of any groups. So there comes transaminase. Sorry, transaminase is one example. Transfer of amino group. Then any kinase enzyme, please note, any kinase enzyme. Kinase enzyme, what it do? It transfers phosphate group from ATP or ADP to substrate or vice versa. And then, so any kinase enzyme comes under transferase. Hydrolase, any our digestive enzyme, breakdown enzymes comes under hydrolase. Lyase, we have few examples. HMG coir lyase. Then comes organosuccinate lyase. In the glycolysis, we have an enzyme called as aldolase. Aldolase. These are comes under lyase. That means breakdown without the use of water. I for isomerase, L for ligase. For example, addition of carbon dioxide by carboxylase. So study with some examples. If you understand these basic concepts about oxidation reduction is dehydrogenation, it's easy. You can say by that. Okay, so one thing about the classification, study with the enzyme classification with some examples, 1 or 2 examples. Then comes a word, active site. Please understand that enzyme we have a big structure made up of a number of amino acids, for example, 500 to 800. But substrate can be a small one amino acid alone. So the enzymes will be bigger. That's my point. Enzymes will be bigger one, and at one's area where the substrate bind. That site we call it as active site. So active site is the site at which enzyme binds. At which the substrate binds is called as active site. And for that binding, there should be some amino acid at that point which binds to it. So the groups of amino acid to which it binds, they are called as catalytic groups. Please understand now. Active site means the site of the enzyme where substrate bind. At that site, we will be having some side chain of amino acid there to which our substrate bind. And this side chain we use, so let's think that this is substrate. These are the side chain. So these are to which it binds. Okay, so that is called as catalytic groups. Okay, they will. Now let's come to the next one. Michaelis-Menten hypothesis. What is it all about? It says that, that's the basic idea about enzymes. Enzyme, during any enzymatic reaction, enzyme will combine with substrate reversibly and form enzyme substrate complex, which converts to enzyme plus product. So then we always say about enzymes catalyzes, but it won't undergo reactions. Okay, here, so this is point. Enzyme always combines substrate and form enzyme substrate complex, then converts to product. So this is the Michaelis-Menten equation. So here, one binding between the enzyme substrate at the active site through catalytic group, and that too through some non-covalent bonds. This binding through non-covalent bonds. This is the Michaelis-Menten hypothesis. Based on this hypothesis, we have the value called as Michaelis-Menten equation, or Km value. Okay. Then comes, how do the enzyme act? See, you might have studied earlier in your revisions and all. During enzymatic reaction, any reaction, during the enzyme reaction, it should reach a high energy state called as activation energy. This much energy what we need, we call it as activation energy. Okay, activation energy we need. And what happened? If there is enzyme, this is reduced. So instead of going up a hill, it will make a tunnel. That's what you should understand. It makes a tunnel and do the things. So enzyme act by reducing the activation energy required for a reaction. Then there comes always an MCQ regarding this one. What if by rate-limiting enzyme or key enzyme or rate-limiting step? Then enzymes through which the whole process control, we call it as rate-limiting enzyme or key enzyme. For example, glycolysis contains 10 steps are there. In that, by controlling 3 enzymes, and importantly, by controlling 1 enzyme, we can control the whole process. So that step we call it as rate limiting step, that enzyme we call it as rate limiting enzyme. There comes a point. Out of the 10 steps in glycolysis, the step through which we control the whole process, that will be having highest activation energy. I'll repeat. In glycolysis, we have 10 steps are there. Each steps are catalyzed by an enzyme, each step of an enzyme. But by controlling one enzyme, we can control the whole process. What is the specialty of that step? That step will be having needs maximum activation energy. So if you are able to control that step, the whole other steps can be maintained. So whenever we say this step is the rate limiting step or any enzyme, meaning that step has the maximum requirement for activation energy. That's what it meant. That's also comes as an MCQ question. And last word, enzyme. Enzymes, as I said, most of the enzymes are protein nature. Along with protein, there will be some non-protein part. Non-protein part. That non-protein part, no, we use a term, in general term is cofactor. What is that? Say cofactor. The non-protein part of an enzyme is called as cofactor. Out of which, if it is an organic molecule, it can be metal, can be any other things. But if it is an organic molecule, then that is called as coenzyme. So coenzymes are a type of cofactor, which is an organic molecule. And what's the use of it? It helps in the transfer of groups. So it's a group transfer agent. So the coenzymes are, that's the point. Coenzymes are group transfer agent. Group transfer agent. Sorry. Group transfer agents. Okay. So that much about the basic concept about enzymes. We'll go for the next thing. There are two types of coenzyme. As I said, it's a group transfer agent. Some coenzyme is involved in the transfer of hydrogen atom. Our NAD, NADP, FAD, FMN. They all help in the transfer of hydrogen. So they are first type, class 1. And class 2, which help in the transfer of groups other than hydrogen. When you remove the transfer of hydrogen, that means oxidation. So there are some coenzymes which are involved in oxidation reduction reaction. That's a class 1, type 1. And type 2 is the one which helps in the transfer of groups other than hydrogen. That means that they are not involved in oxidation reduction reaction. Biotin is always for addition of carbon dioxide, carboxyl reaction. Pyridoxal phosphate, amino group transfer. Okay. And also for decarboxylation. That's another thing. Decarboxylation. Folic acid, its active form, tetrahydrofolate, 1 carbon group. ATP, transfer phosphate group. Thymine paraphosphate, B1's active form. You know it, B1. So transketylation, keto group transfer. So this is what. So you should know the coenzyme and understand that. Understand this point also. Most of the coenzymes are active form of what? What is NAD? Active form of niacin. NADP, active form of niacin. FAD, active form of B2. PLP, active form of B6. Biotin is a vitamin. Folate, folic acid, B9. TPP, thymine, B1. So most of the coenzymes are what? They are active form of vitamin B complex. Hope you understood that. Hope you understood that point. Okay. Now we'll go to the next question. Enzyme can be controlled, regulated by some compound, can reduce the activity. Some compounds can reduce the activity of enzyme or can stop the activity of enzyme. They are called as inhibitors. Okay? They are inhibitors. Now, there are different types of inhibition. One of the inhibition is competitive inhibition. Competitive inhibition. So in competitive inhibition, what's the importance of competitive inhibition? most of the, see, understand that most of our drugs, therapeutic action of drugs, medicine acts by, drugs in the sense what I meant is medicines act by competitive inhibition. Okay, therapeutic action of drugs. Action of drugs. Now, to understand what type of inhibition is there, we always check for two features of enzyme. One we call it as Km value, other one is called as Vmax. First of all, what is Km value? Okay, for that, understand this one. Enzymatic reaction. We have substrate constant on the y-axis. I'm sorry. Velocity on the y-axis, substrate constant on the x-axis. As a substrate concentration increases, beginning stage, velocity increases. We have a hyperbolic curve in this way. Okay. And what is Km value? If this is the Vmax, half of that. To attain the half the Vmax, how much substrate is needed? That is called as Km value. So what is Km value? Km value is a substrate concentration to achieve Vmax by 2. Okay, and that Km value is a feature for enzyme substrate combination. For one enzyme substrate combination, there will be one Km value. For example, we know an enzyme, the glycolysis, we have announced an enzyme hexokinase. Hexokinase can react with glucose. So hexokinase glucose will be having Km value. Hexokinase can react with galactose. So galactose hexokinase will be having another value. Hexokinase fructose will be having another combination. And that will have another Km value. So Km value is a feature for enzyme substrate combination. Okay, fine. And here, in competitive inhibition, what happens is, if you, it will, what is the word competitive means what? You have a enzyme, you have an active site. Here, our substrate and your inhibitor both will compete each other to bind at this site. So there's a competition. That's why the word competitive. So here what happened? If the level of substrate is less, more inhibitor will bind. And in other words, if you attach more substrate and process of inhibitor, add more substrate, so it will always try to reduce and nullify the effect of inhibitor. So at that point of time, what happened? In presence of inhibitor, if you have more substrate, then only it can attain the Km value, Vmax by 2. So that will be increases. In competitive inhibition, the Km values increase. And Vmax, that will not change at all, because the inhibitor is not going to make any change in its structure. So function will not change. So Vmax remains unchanged. The Km value remains same. So this is the one feature of competitive inhibition. But in the case of non-competitive inhibition, what happens is the inhibitor will be binding to some other site. Okay, some other site, not the active site. And that will change the shape. So that function also change. So here, in the case of non-competitive inhibition, the Vmax will decrease. Km value will be same. So we have competitive, non-competitive, and we have one more, uncompetitive inhibition. That's third type of inhibition. And there, what happens is both are decreased. Both Km value and Vmax are decreased. So that's what. So using the Km value and the Vmax, we'll be able to say what type of inhibition is that. Okay, so please study it. Competitive inhibition, the Km value is increased. Km value is increased because if persons are more substrate, the effect of inhibitor can be nullified. That's what you should understand. Okay. And one more clinical point of view, most of the drugs, medicines, or therapeutic action of drugs is by competitive. And what about non-competitive? Please note, most of the toxic compound acts by non-competitive inhibition, irreversible non-competitive inhibition. That point also you should remember. Okay. Next thing is about allosteric enzyme. Allosteric enzyme. What do you mean by allosteric enzyme? That's the first point you should know. Enzyme, some enzymes. Okay, most of the enzyme, oh, you can't say like that. Some of the enzyme will be having only one polypeptide chain. Some will be having more than one polypeptide chain. For example, hemoglobin. Okay, it's not an enzyme but a protein contain 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chain. So it's like tetramer. So most of the allosteric enzymes are multimer, not a monomer, or other word polymer. And why the word allosteric? What happens is, other than the active site, it will be having a site other than the active site where the regulator, inhibitor binds and thereby changes its shape. Allo means other. We can explain allosteric in 2 ways. Allo means other. Steric means shape or site. So what happened? When the inhibitor or regulator bind, it changes its shape. So it forms another shape. Allosteric enzymes. And understand that way, not a monomer. It's not a monomer. Okay. And what happens is, since it is not a monomer, as I said earlier, it won't be showing a hyperbolic curve. And I showed you, right, other one, a diagram where substrate concentration velocity like this in this way. This curve we call it as hyperbolic curve. But in case of allosteric enzyme, it will be a sigmoid curve. What it shows, attachment of one substrate can increase its affinity for others. Cooperative binding, like our ODC curve. Okay, sigmoid curve. Okay, that is one important feature of allosteric enzyme. Okay, and it, as I said, is a number of units is there. And what is not here? There's a person that it has a site other than the active site where the modulator binds. So it will not be showing this curve, hyperbolic curve, and it will not be showing that Michaelis-Menten equation process. So accept that all of that are there. So it cannot follow Michaelis-Menten kinetics. That's what the allosteric enzyme. So I'll repeat once again. Allosteric enzymes are the type of enzymes contain number of units, not a single unit, not a single polypeptide chain. 1 point. And it has a separate site called as allosteric site or a modulator site where the modulator, regulator binds, changes its shape and thereby function changes. So the word allosteric. Okay. And when you say about the substrate velocity curve, it will not be showing a hyperbolic curve, it will be showing a sigmoid curve. Okay. And it cannot show the Michaelis-Menten equations. It will not be following the Michaelis-Menten equation. That's all about the allosteric enzyme. Okay. So now we said about the enzyme, we said about some common features of enzyme. Then about enzyme inhibition, the 3 major inhibition sites we said. 4th one can be called as a regulation also, allosteric inhibition, allosteric regulation. Now we said about another one, clinical enzymology. In clinical enzymology, first question. See, I use the word just clinical enzymology. There, first thing is, some enzyme can be used as a biomarker. What did you understand by that? Some enzyme level in the blood will elevate in some disease conditions. So by denoting by noting that, by estimating the level of that enzyme, we will be able to diagnose some conditions. Here, serum, glutamic acid, glutamate, oxaloacetic acid, transaminase. It's also called as SGOT or other term AST, aspartate transaminase. Another one, SGPT, aspartate, serum, glutamate, pyruvate transaminase, or another word, alanine transaminase, other one is aspartate. These two enzymes mainly will be elevated in liver diseases, AST and ALT. So they are the indicators of liver disease. Whenever there's a hepatocellular damage, hepatocellular infections, inflammations, or damage, AST, ALT value will be elevated. So this is what some enzyme can be used to diagnose the condition. So we use thus biomarkers. We have some more examples here. So this one, serum glutamate oxaloacetate can be used. Transaminase. So just understand this word. Remember this word. Transaminase is an indicator of, if it is elevated, liver disease. Not only that, I'll come to another word also. And here, as I said, there are two enzymes, AST, ALT. Please note a clinical factor. Usually our hepatitis conditions. It's an acute conditions. Jaundice. In the acute conditions, normally the ALT level will be very high. Okay, in acute conditions. Than AST. Because ALT is mainly present in the cytoplasm of the cell. From the cytoplasm, whenever there's infections, hepatitis, infections, inflammations of the cell, this comes out. ALT comes out, so it will be more. But in the case of chronic liver diseases like alcoholic liver diseases, AST level will be high because what happened? From the mitochondria, what is present, where present, that will be coming out. So AST level will be higher than that of ALT. This will also be high, but AST will be high. This ratio, AST-ALT ratio, we call it as D-Rights ratio. Please note, a thing called as D-Rights ratio, by which we know about the disease conditions of the liver. In acute cases, AST-ALT ratio will be less than 1. Less because ALT will be more. In chronic liver diseases or alcohol liver diseases, AST-ALT ratio will be the ratio. Since AST is more, the ratio will be more than 1. Sometimes it will go more than 2. Please note that. So, at least now study that in liver diseases, AST-ALT level will be high. But AST is also elevated. AST is also elevated in MI. Anyway, in this one, MI is not given. So your answer is no doubt liver disease. Please note this one. So this is about the clinical enzymology. What are the enzymes that can be used as a marker for acute pancreatitis, amylase, and of course, one more is there, lipase. Amylase and lipase. Both are elevated in pancreatitis, out of which lipase is a much better indicator because amylase can increase in mumps also. We have salivary amylase. So, but in pancreatitis, the lipase is a better indicator because it will not elevate in mumps and other conditions. In liver disease, as I said earlier, AST and ALT. AST is also elevated in MI, myocardial infarctions also. Now comes another word, ALP. Please note ALP. ALP See, we can say in three. Mild elevation in liver disease. Moderate or around 10 times elevation in obstructive jaundice. Very high, drastic, around 20 times elevations in bone disease. So ALP can elevate in liver disease, bone disease, and obstructive jaundice. And understand that ALP level depends on the activity, bone activity. So in children, the alkaline phosphatase. Alkaline phosphatase is another name, another short name is ALP. Alkaline phosphatase. Alkaline phosphatase value will be high than the normal, than the adult in children, because his bone activity is more. Okay. Another clinically important enzyme is acid phosphatase. Please note, in the prostatic cancer, this level will elevate. Next question, LDH. Another enzyme, LDH. That enzyme elevates in liver disease, and also in heart disease, and in hemolytic disease also. Hemolytic diseases. Also, the LDH value increases because some amount of LDH is present in the RBC. Then, creatine phosphokinase. There's a spelling mistake here. I write here. Creatine, not creatinine. Creatine phosphokinase. For the word, we can use the word CK or CPK. Both are right. CPK. This is one enzyme. It has three isoenzyme. What is my isoenzyme? Same structure or same function, but different in the physical property and chemical properties. Here we have three CPKs. We call it CPK1. It contains 2 units. We just call it as BB. CPK2, MB. CPK3, MM. What is it all about? It contains 2 polypeptide chain. If both are B type, it's called as BB, CPK1. That's mainly present in the brain. CPK2, 1 M fraction, 1 M polypeptide chain, 1 B polypeptide chain. That's present in the heart. And another one, MM, means 2 peptide chains are there, both the M type and then the muscle. Okay, so we have CPK, creatine phosphokinase 3 are there, MM, MB, BB. In that, in MI, this MB fraction will be elevated. So the first enzyme to get elevated in MI, or the first marker, first enzyme. This is a question. The first enzyme that are elevated in MI is CPK-MB. So make it more clear. Creatine phosphokinase MB will be the most important. So these are some clinically important enzymes that can increase in different various disease conditions. Now, please note that there are some enzymes with therapeutic use. That also is clinically important enzyme only. Therapeutic use. Do you know the examples? In MI cases, when they are admitted to dilute the clot, to dissolve the clot, we give the enzyme streptokinase. Urokinase. Streptokinase, urokinase. So they are therapeutically important enzyme. In cancer patient, we give an enzyme asparginase. That's also a therapeutically important enzyme. So clinical enzymology, when we study, first you should know some enzyme that helps in the diagnosis. Second one, therapeutic purpose. And third, one more is there. Third, for in the laboratory, diagnostic purposes. Laboratory. You are very familiar with glucose estimation. GOD, POD, glucose oxidase, peroxidase. GOD, POD, one example. Urea by urease. Urease enzyme. So please note. So we have clinically important enzyme. We can say three things. One for diagnosis, whose values are elevated in different clinical conditions. Second, some enzymes that we use therapeutically as a drug of choice. Third, in the laboratory for the diagnostic purpose. Okay. Now, going to the last part of today's topic, today's class, vitamins. You know what are vitamins? Again, they are organic compounds needed in small amount for the normal functioning of the body. We have two types of vitamin, fat soluble and water soluble. The fat soluble vitamin, since it's not soluble in water, soluble in the fat or lipid, so you can easily, some of them can easily enter into the cell, bind to some receptors and change the functions, or it can change the gene expressions. Our steroid hormones act in that way. Steroid hormones. What do you do? That steroid hormone, let this be the cell. This be the nucleus. We have the DNA here. Steroid hormones can easily go inside. It binds with some receptors. Then it will go and bind the DNA. Thereby some gene from there, the protein synthesis, it will be able to control, regulate it. So it can, steroid hormones regulate gene expression by entering into the cell, then bind to some receptor. This is the receptor, this dot is the steroid hormone. Then bind to DNA in the nucleus. From there, our RNA and protein synthesis will be controlled. So we call it as it regulate gene expression. Regulate gene expression. Now, out of these, who act like that? We have studied that regarding vitamin D. You know what happens? Vitamin D, same way it goes inside, bind the receptor, then bind to DNA, and thereby increase the synthesis of calbindin, a protein that helps in the absorption of calcium, calbindin. So act like a hormone. So vitamin D. So from long back onwards, we know that vitamin D act like a steroid hormone. So vitamin D's form is called as cholecalciferol, cholecalciferol, and its active form name is, please note, its active form name is calcitriol. Active form is calcitriol. So calcitriol acts like a hormone. Cholecalciferol is conversion to calcium acts like a hormone. So this is called as prohormone. Cholecalciferol is called as prohormone. Calcitriol is called as hormone. Okay. Now, the recent advancement, please note, long back the question came in this way, and no doubt the answer was vitamin D. But recent findings have all established that even vitamin A also act like a hormone, a protein present in our skin and nail, keratin. Its synthesis is decreased by vitamin A. Vitamin A, if deficiency, leads to hyperkeratinization. Vitamin A deficiency can cause hyperkeratinization. Hyperkeratinization. So, now as per the new ideas, what we know, both vitamin A and vitamin D act like a hormone. Even the retinoic acid Vitamin A, we have three forms are there: retinol, retinoic acid, and retinal. Okay, I'll come to that word later. So first of all, let me say this one, calmite. So I'll say here itself, vitamin D, what is function? Act like a hormone, no doubt. What is function? The main function is to maintain calcium level. Vitamin D maintain blood calcium level. Active form name, calcitriol. Hope you understood that. It acts backing at three sites. In kidney, intestine, and in bones, it helps to maintain the calcium level. Vitamin D. Okay. In that process, there comes even the mineralization of bonds also. Vitamin A has three forms. What are the three forms? Retinol, retinal, and retinoic acid. And its provitamin A is beta carotene. Provitamin A is beta carotene. Now listen to this one. Retinol help in the reproduction process, maintain the germinal epithelial layer, thereby help in reproduction. Retinal in vision. We know that in our retina we have rods and cones. They contain the cones, the rods contain, it helps in dim light vision. It contains 11 cis retinal. Retinoic acid helps in gene expression, thereby helps to maintain the epithelial layer, skin epithelium, epithelial maintenance. Okay, so it acts like a steroid hormone, regulate gene expressions. Epithelial layer maintenance is one function of that. So these are some functions of vitamin A. And as you know, vitamin A deficiency leads to the first vitamin A deficiency, what we see is nyctalopia or what? Night blindness. You know it. Okay. So here for the question answer is vitamin D. And of course, this question came long back. And nowadays, if it comes, both D and A, both are right. Okay. Which vitamin is synthesized by intestinal bacteria? Or the words, name the vitamin that can have a source as intestinal bacteria. Here in this option, vitamin K is the one which is inside by the intestinal bacteria. But we have other also. We have other things like riboflavin. Intestinal bacteria can synthesize. We have biotin. Another one. At least these two should remember. Riboflavin, biotin. Use the intestinal bacteria. Okay. Now, what's the function of vitamin K? Vitamin K. Why the C? We had A, B, C, D. Then E. Then why not F, G and all? Instead of why K? Because in German language, we write the clotting with the word, with the letter like somewhat similar to K. So from there came this word K, vitamin K. Vitamin K helps in. So function of vitamin K helps in clotting. I'll add something to that. How it helps in clotting? By activating some clotting factors. Which are clotting factors? 2, 7, 9, and 10. Activating clotting factors 2, 7, 9, 10. How it activates? How it activates? Through a cycle called as vitamin K cycle. That means vitamin K can exist in 3 forms in our body: epoxide form, quinone form, hydroquinone form. And they are a cycle called vitamin K cycle. And during that time, it helps in the, now listen to the postmortem point, it helps in the gamma carboxylation. Gamma carboxylation of glutamic acid in 2, 7, 9, 10. Okay, that's what. So in that way, it activates the clotting factor 2, 7, 9, 10, thereby helps in clotting. So vitamin K helps in clotting. 1 point. Same way, through vitamin K cycle, it helps in the gamma carboxylation. Now, one here, if you say a point, we'll understand that. How it helps by gamma carboxylation, how it become active? Because already, see, glutamic acid contains one carboxyl group. Now, one more is attached here by vitamin K. So, two minus charges, it can bind to calcium. Calcium clotting factor 4. So, this gamma carboxylation increases the availability of calcium, thereby helps in clotting. I'll repeat all the points once again. We simply say vitamin K helps in clotting. How it helps in clotting? By activating factors 2, 7, 9, 10. How it activates? Through gamma carboxylation. How it helps the gamma carboxylation process? Through a cycle called as K cycle. My question, why the gamma carboxylation can activate? How it can activate 2, 7, 9, 10? Because by gamma carboxylation, it will be having one more charge, minus negative charge. Then it can bind to calcium. So availability of calcium increases, thereby increases clotting. One more point now, most important point. So vitamin K helps in the gamma carboxylation, thereby helping the binding of calcium. So not only clotting factors, any protein that can bind to calcium. For example, in our bone, we have a protein called as osteocalcin. That also can undergo the gamma carboxylation, thereby calcium binding, thereby its activation. So vitamin K, the name was given based on the fact that it helps in clotting. But later on we understood, not only for clotting, it not only activates the clotting factors, it can activate other factors also that can bind to calcium. A protein in the bone we call as osteocalcin. In the kidney we call it as nephrocalcin. Another protein called as protein S. These all are activating this one. These all are involved in the binding of calcium. Hope it's clear for you. So now we are clear about vitamin K, and any compound that inhibits vitamin K cycle, we call it as anticoagulant. So most of the anticoagulants are, for example, warfarin. That's the one that we use now in medically, therapeutically. Warfarin, anticoagulant, that inhibits vitamin K cycle by inhibiting an enzyme epoxide reductase. It's an example for competitive inhibition. See, our competitive inhibition comes here. Okay. So that much about vitamin K. About B1, what do you know? Our question is B1. B1 is thymine. An active form is thymine pyrophosphate. It helps in two types of reactions. It's a fact actually. Oxidative decarboxylation and transketylation. Clinical point of view, what you should remember is this oxidative decarboxylation is one major steps in the energy producing reactions. So a thymine deficient patient will be having this energy deficit production through carbohydrate. So I repeat, oxidative decarboxylation is a major step in the energy producing process from carbohydrate. So thymine deficiency, there the patient will be having some deficit in energy, easily gets exhausted. So the patient will always say, I can't, I'm not well, I'm feeling tired. For that, the word is Simhali's word. Very. I can't. So thymine pyrophosphate required for oxidative decarboxylation, please note. And then one clinically important matter. Thymine pyrophosphate, for its conversion from thymine to thymine pyrophosphate and for its absorption, these both processes will be inhibited by by alcohol. So in alcohol addicts, that's my point. The first deficiency what they call in alcohol addicts is B1 deficiency or the vitamin deficiency observed in alcohol addicts, chronic alcoholics, alcoholics. The problem what we see in them, the deficiency what we see is vitamin B1 deficiency. Please not. So I'll go for the next slide now. About another vitamin study now. Tryptophan lot test help in the evaluation of deficiency of which vitamin. Now for that, again, some fact you are supposed to study. In the body, from amino acid tryptophan, from amino acid, I'll write here. Amino acid tryptophan. I'll go for next one, then you understand that. Okay. Lot of reactions are there. It's in size niacin. Niacinamide or niacin B3. From 60 milligram, 1 milligram niacin can be synthesized. Okay. And then in this synthesis, in one step, you need PLP. One step you need PLP is nothing but B6. So if the B6 is not there, what happened? The steps will not take place and a compound called as xanthionic acid, that will be excreted out. So for a patient, the tryptophan is given, and then if there's a presence of xanthionic acid, that it shows what? Absence of which one? PLP. Hope you understood that. So this is the point about, this is the principle behind the tryptophan lot test. Now I'll just go through that first now. 60 milligram tryptophan can produce 1 milligram niacin. 1 point. There, a lot of 1 mark questions are there, MCQs are there. See, in this conversion, a number of steps are there. One step, the compound is called as kinurnase, one enzyme, kinurnase. That requires PLP. Okay. And the prolonged use of anti-TB drug, or what will happen? That will inhibit PLP. So kinurnase will be there, will not be there. Niacin cannot be synthesized. So niacin deficiency will occur. And my point is that niacin deficiency occurs either in B6 deficiency or also due to anti-TB drug, a high dose. That means prolonged use of anti-TB drug. Another pattern. See, look here, I'll just go through that. See, in some areas of India, they use as a breakfast staple diet, they use a thing called as, here, they use a compound called as a staple diet called as jowar. Other word, sorghum. You know what happened? That contained a lot of amino acid leucine. Now what happened? In the conversion of tryptophan to niacin, the main enzyme is QPR, quinolinate phosphoribosyl transferase. Now my point. What happens is, a person taking a lot of jowar, regular intake of jowar, there will be leucine, that inhibits QPRT. So what will happen? Further, there will be niacin deficiency. So first reason for niacin deficiency, either anti-TB drug or PLP deficiency. Second, high intake of sorghum. Okay, if the PLP is absent, what will happen? I said the word, xanthionic acid will be excreted in the urine. So by checking the level of that, we can say whether PLP is there or not. That's what the before question. Tryptophan lot test based on that. Now I come to niacin. Niacin deficiency. We know that vitamin deficiency can occur because of nutritional. But there are some non-nutritional reason for niacin deficiency. That's what I'm going to say. First one, some prolonged use of anti-TB drug. Second, our jowar or sorghum. Third, from tryptophan, a compound called, another neurotransmitter called as serotonin is produced. Serotonin. There is a condition called as Carcinoid syndrome. What happened? All the tryptophan will be at that time will be converted to tryptophan. Sorry, serotonin. All the tryptophan will be converted to serotonin. So tryptophan will not be available for the sense of niacin. So that also can lead to. So my according to these things, third reason for niacin deficiency. Fourth reason, tryptophan absorption is inhibited. So there was a family in England first identified them tryptophan absorption defect or neutral amino acid absorption defect, and that family was named as Hartnup. So it's called as Hartnup disease. So in them, tryptophan is not absorbed or reabsorbed. That leads to niacin deficiency. So there are four major non-nutritional reasons for niacin deficiency. One is prolonged use of anti-TB drug. Another one, over intake of jowar or sorghum. Third, Hartnup disease, where the absorption of tryptophan absorption or reabsorption of tryptophan is defective. Fourth is Carcinoid syndrome. Okay, and niacin deficiency leads to what? A condition called as, you might have already done a revision class, so can be able to say that. It's called as pellagra. Pellagra means rough skin. Earlier about TBP, I said the word beriberi means I can't. Here pellagra means rough skin. There we have 3 Ds. You know, I hope you remember the word 3 Ds. Dermatitis, diarrhea, and dementia. Okay, so something about niacin I said now. I said about the deficiency of this one leads to PLP deficiency leads to sanduric acid accumulation. The same way, another one. One vitamin deficiency leads to methyl malonyl aciduria. What is that all about? This is about the B12. You know what happened? B12 is involved in 2 reactions. One is conversion of methyl, this word, methyl malonyl CoA to succinyl CoA. This step is inhibited if the B12 is absent. This needs B12. If it is absent, this will be inhibited. So that leads to accumulation and accretion of methyl malonyl acid. So that's what methyl malonyl aciduria. Okay, and B12 helps in only 2 reactions. Second one is a conversion of homocysteine to methionine. So that patient with B12 deficiency will be having homocystinuria. So homocystinuria. You can see homocystinuria also in B12 deficiency. And for the conversion of homocysteine to methionine, not only we need this one, we need folic acid also. Not only B12, we need folic acid also. So in folic acid deficiency also, you can see hyperhomocystinemia, increased amount of homocysteine in the blood, thereby homocystinuria, we can see. So study that. Then, about other vitamins. But I'm trying to say about deficiency now, no? Deficiency of B12 deficiency leads to methyl malonyl aciduria, homocystinuria. Folic acid deficiency leads to homocystinuria. Then PLP deficiency leads to sanduric aciduria. Now, another matter, our TPP deficiency, how will you understand that? How will you study that? Using our B1 deficiency or its level can be estimated by estimating the level of RBC transketolase. Transketolase activity in RBC. Okay, that's another one about it we should know. That one more question is there regarding thymin. Now, about B12. Always students make a mistake on this one. B12. I said the function two reactions. Deficiency leads to what? Everybody, most of the students on the stage, those who didn't understand the topic properly, will use the word pernicious anemia. But the point is, pernicious means fatal anemia. That was seen whenever the patient had a deficiency of intrinsic factor of calcium. What is that all about? For the B12 absorption, we need a factor from inside. So the word is the intrinsic factor. Some patients, what happened? Because of some autoimmune antibodies produced against intrinsic factor, because of which intrinsic factor was not there, so the B12 was not getting absorbed, so they had anemia. This is fatal, so the word came pernicious anemia. But if you ask me, a symptom for B12 deficiency should say there'll be a combined, I write here, I'm sorry, combined degeneration of nerves. Combined degeneration of nerves. Subacute, exact word is subacute combined degeneration of nerves. Why the words combined? Because both motor and sensory nerves are affected. Demyelination. So they'll be having some neurological manifestation. There comes the word Babinski sign positive, Romberg sign positive. Less reflexes will be altered. These all comes under B12 deficiency. Unsteady gait, the patient will not be able to walk properly. Patient will not be able to write properly. They will not be able to position sense will be less for them. So altogether, we use the word subacute combined degeneration of nerves. Plus anemia. We can call it as megaloblastic or macrocytic anemia, but we use word megaloblastic. Megaloblastic anemia. Anemia will be, see, this anemia, megaloblastic or macrocytic anemia will be there, both folic acid and B12. But in B12 deficiency, they'll be having, in addition to anemia, they'll be having subacute combined degeneration of nerves, some neurological problems. That also you should remember. And folic acid, what's the use of folic acid? Folic acid, active form is tetrahydrofolate. You know that, tetrahydrofolic acid. That helps in one carbon metabolism. That's a simpler chemical term, but easy term to understand is help in the synthesis of nucleotides, purine pyrimidine. I'll write that word, purine pyrimidine. Purine and pyrimidine. Thereby DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis. That's what folic acid. And without DNA and RNA, what will happen? Our cell division will be affected. And the first and foremost affected will be our erythropoiesis process. So they'll be having anemia. Immature cells might be able to see in the smear. Okay, so that's why we use the word macrocytic or megaloblastic anemias. Hope you understood it. The following vitamin is important in non-oxidative decarboxylation, transamination, transsulfuration reaction. This one is about pyridoxine. You know, B6 is the one which is involved in all the pathways. It is there the protein pathway. I'll always say it is there the 6 type of reactions. I'll say one by one. Protein, there comes our transamination reaction, transsulfuration reaction, decarboxylation. So amino acid metabolism. Second, sphingomyelin synthesis. Myelin synthesis. Second one. Third, heme synthesis. Fourth one, glycogen breakdown. Fifth one, just now we said niacin synthesis, PLP for kinase enzyme. And sixth one, conversion of homocysteine to methionine. That's what our transsulfuration reaction. Homocysteine to methionine. So this is, see, it's involved in vitamins, involved in heme, involved in amino acid metabolism, involved in lipid metabolism, involved in carbohydrate metabolism. So pyridoxine is an important vitamin, is involved in different metabolic pathways, because of which deficiency can lead to anemia, deficiency leads to some neurological problems, deficiency leads to pellagra, deficiency leads to hyperhomocysteemia and cardiological problems. So cardiological, neurological, hematological, and dermatological manifestation will be there in case of pyridoxine deficiency. So very important to note about that. Okay, next one. Which vitamin is important in mitosis? Just now I said folic acid is involved in what process? 1-carbon metabolism, thereby purine pyrimidine synthesis, thereby involved in DNA RNA synthesis, cell division, cell. So there's the word mitosis. Hope you understood. So folic acid active form is tetrahydrofolic acid. Involved one chemical term, 1-carbon metabolism. Thereby EC term, purine pyrimidine synthesis. Purine pyrimidine synthesis. Thereby DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis. Thereby cell division and replication. Hope you understood. So that's why we can see the anemia in the cases. Anemia in the folic acid deficiency. Any other disorder, of course, in pregnant ladies, what happened? If they didn't supplement, if they are not supplemented with folic acid, there can be a neural tube defect. Neural tube defect. Neural tube formation will be under trouble. Or we can say, in simpler words, fetal malformation, simple word, because this cell division replication is not in place properly. So fetal malformation in folic acid deficiency can lead to that. This is what you should know now. Okay, about folic acid. And here, one more word, a tricky one. There's a term called as folate trap. Reason for folate trap. So everybody, if we just on a word, when we hear this word, we can say, okay, something related to folic acid. Of course, it's there. But what is that all about? This folic acid, for its utilization, we need B12. I'm not going to the reaction steps and all. That will be complicated. Just understand this much. B12 is essential for the proper utilization of folic acid. So whenever B12 is absent, folic acid will accumulate in the body as methyl tetrahydrofolate. Methyl tetrahydrofolic acid or tetrahydrofolate. And this cannot be, this level will be increased and this cannot be utilized. Okay. And this condition, folic acid is there in the body as methyl tetrahydrofolate, but cannot be utilized. That's called as folate trap. So folate trap is due to what? Due to whose deficiency? B12 deficiency. The reason behind the folate trap is B12 deficiency, please note. So here ends our topic for today. I hope you understood the things. I hope you enjoyed the topics. I tried to cover the general biochemistry, enzymes, and vitamins. Hope it was useful for you. Thank you.